Welcome to Talk to Me. I'm your host, Brenda Warren, the solutionist. I see things other people often miss. I help entrepreneurs, veterans, and authors turn their mess or their mission into a message for the masses. And today I have a message for a mass of women that you better listen up for, ladies. If you are a mom and you are fed up, then this is the show you want to watch because today my guest is none other than Coach Ren. Ren Jones is the fitness coach that fed up moms come to after the gimmicks, restrictions, and quick fixes just don't work. He is the owner of Fitness Jones Training, an online coaching business where he specializes in coaching overworked moms by giving them simple, short workouts and uncomplicated nutrition strategies. And for those of us that are sick and tired of being sick and tired and ready to lose the weight, listen up, ladies, because Coach Ren is your man. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you today, sir?
Oh man, I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm here with a new background, so that's a big deal for me.
Yes.
I'm the first guest with the new background, and nobody can ever take that away from me.
No, they can't. You are the very first guest with a background like this because normally I have a virtual background, but we shook things up a little bit because you have to overcome and adapt sometimes. So I'm excited you're here to help me bring this. And you know what's best about this because we're talking about transformations. So this is a transformation of my set, and I'm hoping to learn some great tips as well as my audience on how we can get our fitness on point. So first I want to start with, could you tell me what made you decide to focus on fed up moms?
Absolutely, and there's a bit of a story here. So I got into the fitness space individually
Mm-hmm.
because my big brother suggested that I exercise. My brother was 18 years old when I was born, so he was
Okay.
going off to college. I was coming into the world, and around 6 or 7, he used to say, "Man, you start working out now. By the time
Mm-hmm.
you get my age, you'll be in good shape." So that was my own personal introduction, and I am a self-confirmed musical geek.
Okay.
So I played trumpet in the university band at North Carolina A&T State University, but I also played in high school. My friends were football players, so they introduced me to the weight room. Fast forward, I'm at North Carolina A&T in my junior year, and my mother had a stroke, a major debilitating stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went home. My brother called me. He said, "Hey, mom's had a stroke. We need you to come home." So I came home from school for I think that weekend or something or that week, and um, and I found out in the hospital with my brother after him telling me that mom had a stroke was that one of the conditions that helped lead to the stroke, aside from some lifestyle related issues, of
Mm-hmm.
course, was that my older sister Robin, who was 13 years older than me, they could not find her at the time. She's in her early 30s. My sister was drug addicted.
Okay.
So nobody had told me any of this when I was at school, probably under the auspices of not distracting me from concentrating in school.
Right, right.
Um, Fast forward that, I'm out of school, I'm working my real job, and I
Mm-hmm.
get a call from home from the young lady that I was dating at the time, uh, that my brother Rodney had a massive heart attack. And I
Oh,
said, "Oh, I'm on my way. I'm on my way home." And she said, "You can slow down. He didn't make it."
oh, I'm so
So
sorry.
my mother, who was incapacitated due to the major stroke, she lost her freedom, right? Her
Mm-hmm.
independence. She was living with my brother and my brother's wife, my sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom moved in with my sister, who is now found and recovered,
Mm-hmm.
living with her husband in my hometown. Well, 4 years after my brother died, my sister Robin drank, got in a car, hit a tree, and died instantly.
Oh.
So this moved my mother to extended living because her health had deteriorated to that extent. So
Mm-hmm.
I would go back and forth from where I live now in Charlotte, North Carolina. For the listeners, that's probably about an hour and 15 or 20 minutes away from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
I would go back and forth. My mother's brother was in that city at the time. My mother's sister was there. Of course, all of her friends, her nursing college registered years. So she lived, and I went Thursday have a milkshake party. And I would go back on Saturday, we'd have a donut party. And then on Sundays, we would watch NFL football together. My mother loved football. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting there in the room with her one day, hating what I'm doing as a financial professional. I was a corporate sales trainer for an international insurance company. So I was teaching the agents sales
Mm-hmm.
techniques. Is lots of pressure, lots of stress, a very, very belligerent boss, right?
Yeah.
I'm going through these family changes. He's
Mm-hmm.
in no way empathetic to that, just squeezing the work out of me, promoting me through these things, right? Which is, normally you think that's a great thing. But in my case, the levels of responsibility I felt torn. In any case, I'm sitting there in the room and a commercial comes on for the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which is a certifying body that certifies personal trainers. And Renda, it felt like the commercial was talking to me.
I know that
Are
feeling.
are you stuck in a job that you want to get in? I'm like, yes. Do you love fitness? I was like, I do. I've loved fitness since I was 15. Have
Mm-hmm.
you considered being a fitness professional or personal trainer? I was like, yeah. Call this 800 number. I called the 800 number by my mother's bedside. This was November-ish 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Got enrolled, started studying the certification. It's hard certification to get. February of 2014, my mother died. March
Mm-hmm.
17th of 2014, I passed my exam, cried all the way home.
Mm-hmm.
April of 2014, I turned 40. And that was
Wow.
my introduction to this space. And from the story, you can probably see why I work with moms.
Yeah.
I became the thing that I needed, but did not have access to before my mother got sick based on her lifestyle related issues. So, what I try to do is put these moms in a position where, number one, they are able to improve their health with simple techniques, right? Uncomplicated nutrition, right?
Right.
With simple techniques, with a sense of joy in the process. No disrespect to our veterans. I'm not a military style coach, right? I'm much more of a touchy feely
Mm-hmm.
habit formation coach. I lean a lot into the psychology, and provide a way for these mothers to be healthier. But also, I know that the mom is the gateway to the family's health, right? As the
Right.
mom eats, typically so too does the family. As the mom moves, typically so do her children. And I realized that I could impact generations of families by going through the very targeted gateway of helping moms better understand health and wellness in a simplified way that was not dogmatic, but that
Mm-hmm.
allowed space for grace in addition to discipline, and in some cases, instead of discipline. So that's how I got here. And I know that's your first time hearing that story, I think, for me.
Yes, it is. And with your background now, it makes sense because I always wonder when I find male coaches in that space, and I'm often amazed that it's because of usually a mom, a wife, or a girlfriend that
Mm-hmm.
began to struggle due to menopause or just life choices, where they find themselves now saying, "Hey, I've been doing this with men for a long time, but let me focus on the ladies,"
Mm-hmm.
because we definitely are unique creatures, and it's
Absolutely.
not always that easy for us. Because for me, I did 20 years in the Marine Corps, so I'm not a stranger to exercise, and I used to bodybuild even at one time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I turned, I'm 58 now, about to be 59 in December, and I think it's been about 3 years now that all of a sudden it didn't matter how hard I worked out, Coach Ren, the weight was not coming off. I worked out 7 days a week. I intermittent fasting. I did 20 hours on with a 4 hour eating window,
Right.
and I was eating OMAD. And for those of you who don't know, OMAD is one meal a day. And I put on 29 pounds eating one meal a day. And I was horrified because I'm like, well, I can't go any lower than one meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
Then I thought I had the great, you know what, maybe I'm just hitting a plateau. So I fasted for 7 days and put on 5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I can't anymore. I'm so frustrated. And then I went to a nutritionist. And what I found, which you probably can relate to, is that you can go to a nutritionist, but if they don't specialize in women like you do,
Mhm.
again, I just continued to gain weight. And because they had me start eating 6 meals a day, they told me about reverse dieting.
Yes.
And I didn't want to do it. And so then I reverse dieted and I started eating 6 meals a day.
Mhm.
And I did drop some weight, but then the weight packed right back on again. And then the frustration got to a point where, unfortunately for me, I realized now I'm having to seek counseling because now I have a fear of eating.
Mhm.
So that's a lot. And I'm saying all just say, how do you deal with someone like me when a woman comes to you? I am fed up with all the gimmicks, the restrictions, the quick fixes, the don't eat, do eat, don't eat this. I've cut out
Yes.
whole food eating restrictions and nothing seems to work. And at this point, it's this sense of who do you trust?
Absolutely. I totally understand that. And see, here's the complicating factor, right? A lot of the times, because there's science involved, we look at the human body, and you may hear people refer to it as a vehicle, right?
Mhm.
Fuel your vehicle properly. The problem is the human body, the human in general, is connected in so many multi-layered ways that you can't just patch a tire, right? You can't just fix the eating. When we first interacted, and I think some of the first things that you heard me say, I talked about, well, how's your sleep? What are your
What's
stress levels like?
yeah.
What's your life like right now? How do you feel about how you're eating? I understand the calories in and calories out, but what I want to know is when you think about eating, does that stress you out? Right? How do you feel about your exercise? I understand you can go hard in the gym. You're a
Mhm.
Marine. I get that.
I can do that.
You've got the ability and the capacity, but how do you feel about doing that? Do you go into it with a frustrated mindset? I hope this works. So women are so complex in every way and intelligent in every way. Your body's even more intelligent than a man's body. Don't let this get out. I'm going to get my mail card revoked by saying these things on your show. So I hope this is women. If you're a man listening to this, go ahead and disconnect now. This is the women's only portion of the program. But it's so complex, and you'll find that even women and or younger women don't actually understand all those complexities. One thing that I've gotten from a very prominent doctor who deals with women in terms of exercise, Dr. Stacy Sims. She's got a
Mhm.
great book called Roar, ROAR. I highly suggest that you listen to it or check it out, and for the audience here. But one of the things that she's quoted as saying is, women are not just tiny men, right?
Yes,
And
I've
we
heard
try to
that.
approach it the same. And that physiological response, every physiological response for a woman is predicated on procreation or the shutdown of procreation. And I'm talking about everything from reproductive years, comma, perimenopause, postmenopause.
Mhm.
Um, and there are two different biological functions there, which is why you could do what you had been doing up until a certain age that always worked. And then all of a sudden, none of it works.
No.
Well, that person's gone, the first person. You need a completely new strategy for the new person. And that's what I do with the clients that I work with. And my first order of business, Brenda, is to reduce the stress response at all costs. That's my first order of business. I do that. Some of that I do through my own personality, demeanor, my
Mhm.
tendency to be very, sort of lighthearted,
Mhm.
and if not comical. That's on purpose because I want to relax my client. And something that I do with reducing some of the rules. There's so many rules and regs that
There's a
you've
lot of
learned
rules.
over
Yeah.
the years, and you almost become militant in following those directives, right? And so then when they fail you, you lose faith in the entire system without understanding that, oh, let me check the manual. Oh, you're here. Here's the other set of rules and regs that you're not introduced to until you get to this point. Then once again, you can have a little bit more faith in the rules and regs. So you're just using the old what do they call it? The
Standard operating procedures.
yes, SOP. You're using the
SOP.
old SOP for the new equipment. And that's never
Well, I'm
going to
not
work
liking
out.
my new equipment. I want to let you know because it is not working. Because,
Right.
like I said, I thought, well, I'm walking a mile a day, so I'll just walk 3. There were days, Coach, I was walking 10 miles a day.
Oh, yeah.
And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a 20-mile march. I mean, whatever it took. And it was not budging. And that just stressed me out even more. And I did do what we talked about. I had my lab work done, and my cortisol is through the roof.
Through the roof, yeah.
You know, but I know that also for me personally is attributed to the fact that I was diagnosed with PTSD back in 2011.
Absolutely.
So I'm constantly in fight or flight. Yes. I don't sleep well.
Yes.
And now I'm eating as if food is the enemy.
Absolutely.
So I know I have some work to do.
Layer upon layer upon layer. So a nutritional meal plan doesn't take care of all those layers. A workout routine doesn't take care of all those layers. More cardio doesn't take care of it. It's so multifaceted that it's not even almost that you really have to start at the base layer, and you're just addressing. You've got checkpoints, waypoints, right? You got to make it from one waypoint to the next. Then you reassess. Then the mission changes slightly. Then you make it to the next one. Then you reassess. And what happens often is we start out with a total plan, and we're going to stick to it regardless of what we assess at rallying points, right? We don't care what we find there. We're just going to stick to the plan, and that usually compromises us more than it allows us to be on target. But I totally get it. This is the story of my life as a coach. So it makes
it's hard
sense.
though, because when you are introduced to someone like you, Coach, and everything in my training and my military background tells me consistency over time. You don't deviate. You just put your head down. Yes. You eat rice cakes and you don't breathe, and you work out. And that has not served me. So I am at the place where I know this is not serving me. I have to do something different, because the old ways of doing has failed. The new ways of doing has failed, and no one seems to have the answer. So coming across you was like a breath of fresh air, trying to figure out. But I must tell you, even with the stuff that you told me, the fear factor is so real. And I could hear your voice in my head saying, letting go of the old way of thinking and to begin to embrace the possibility of doing things differently. But how do you let go of the life raft that you've been holding on to in the middle of the ocean when you really don't trust that you're going to be able to float?
Oh, that's a great question. And the answer is you don't jump into the water. You don't jump out of the raft. That's what most people are going to want to do. And what I'm going to encourage them to do, and say, hey, take your shoe off and put a toe in the water. See how that feels. We're going to coast along for a few nautical miles. We're just going to coast along the raft just with your foot in the water. Now let's try the other foot for a little while. Now let's put them both in there. Right. And the next thing you know, put your hand in up to your wrist. Now try up to your shoulder. Now put both in. Stick your head in there for a quick second. See what's down there. just see, and as a coach, I have to be informed enough to extend that level of patience to allow you to incrementally change your thought process about it, right? Because what we want to do as humans is say, get out of this raft, kicking your back, right? Kicking your backside. Because I don't want to wait on you to get it, right? I just want you to follow just do what I'm saying, right? And that's why I use that analogy of me not being sort of a boot camp style military, type coach, because with the population that I work with, that doesn't serve. There's a level of fear that requires me to introduce things incrementally and slowly get you to unclench your hands from the side of that raft, right? Because you're holding on for dear life.
Their
We
life.
are we are clinging to what we've known, and
Mm.
in that desire, we are never able to get our hands on what we don't know that will. So pry your finger gently. I try to. You're just going to tie it to it. We just do a thing at a time. First we work a little bit on the food, but we don't change a whole lot. Then we work a little bit on on sort of bringing the movement down a little bit. Trying to find what we call that minimum effective dose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if 200 milligrams of ibuprofen does the trick, taking 1,000 is not necessary. It's going to
Got it.
compromise you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always looking for what's the minimally effective thing that yields a result so as to keep that body out of an overstressed state. And what the client is going to want to do is exactly what you described at the top of this talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Went from a mile to 10 miles to 20-mile march, right?
Mm-hmm.
Went from a couple of days a week to 6 days a week. Went from, intermittent fasting to OMAD, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to bear it down and make it happen. But in that case, you're not actually partnering with your current physiology. You are the salmon swimming upstream, and that body fat bear is just waiting on you. That
Mm-hmm.
body fat grizzly just waiting for you to jump up out of that water. So he can literally bite you in half. And this is what happens a lot of times. In this case, for a woman with this hormonal profile at this stage of life? That's a great question, though.
So, like, since most of your training is done online, which
Mm-hmm.
allows you to really service women all over the world,
Absolutely.
how has this helped you, especially with people like in my situation, where I can't necessarily get to you on a daily basis or anything like that? Help me dissuade the fears and also get the information, but keep me on task, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So it's difficult for people to conceptualize, and the train adjacent to my apartment is coming. So if you guys hear
Mhm.
something, that's my literal train of thought as I'm trying to answer this question.
Okay.
It's hard for people to conceptualize because they're not accustomed to it. Now, one great thing that the pandemic did, if it did anything that was great, is it brought in an entirely new population of people to the online space who
Mhm.
better understand interacting online now.
Mhm.
So that simplified things a bit, but it's a hard concept to understand until you experience it. So number one, I have very, very tight methodologies for making this happen.
Okay.
Two of the certifications that I have as a coach are a level 1 certification for online training specifically. That
Okay.
means a certifying body, an organization has taught me how to do this type of business in the online space.
Okay.
And then I went and got a level 2 certification to even better understand how to communicate online, how to send an appropriate text message, how to build a Facebook group, what apps are out there that I can use to communicate the actual workout, the apps that I can utilize for nutritional intervention, so
Okay.
that I'm much more present in the online space. I'm nearly omnipresent
Mhm.
um, in the online space, nearly omniscient too in the
Mhm.
online space than I could be in person, because in person, and I did that type of work, I would see you 30 minutes or maybe an hour, 3 times per week. Every other second of your life, I would not be involved in any way.
Mhm.
So I'm able to get feedback from you in real time. When you complete a workout, pops right into my phone. It'll tell me
Okay.
how much you lifted, the amount of repetitions, the amount of sets. You get to rate how difficult it was. So after
Mhm.
each workout, I can look in and say, oh, she needs a little bit more challenge. This wasn't difficult enough for her.
Mhm.
The nutritionally, I can see when you've completed a nutrition lesson. My lessons also have questions. I'm asking you to give me feedback about what you've just learned nutritionally. I'm able
Mhm.
to see what that feedback is on an ongoing basis. So I'm very, very present in the online space, and the communication happens on our own individual time instead of having to find a meeting time that we can communicate. You're doing the exercises that are preloaded for you with my examples on your time. I'm viewing the results of that on my time. You're doing your nutrition lessons on your time. I'm reading the results of that on my time. I'm reaching out to you to set appointments like the one that we set today for this broadcast. You're replying to when you're available to have a phone conversation or a Zoom conversation. So all those things make it very, very efficient and make me even more present in the online space. I'm as available as you choose to allow me to be. But there are multiple check-ins every single week. There are about 6 opportunities per week for us to interact. So having a systematic process that I was taught and certified to utilize, it reduces a lot of the confusion. And I'm never really guessing at how to best communicate these things. And I've been doing this since 2014. So I'm not new to the online space.
So how much does the online community that you do in Facebook play in connecting with you? Is that something that's mandatory, or is that just an added benefit for someone that needs community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't operate outside of that personally, but I know plenty of online coaches that do. The reason for me to do that online community on Facebook for just my clients, clients only, it's probably the same reason that military trains together, right? I'm building a community and an environment that is going to guide the individual in the way that the unit is best served, right? One of the key ways that we change our behavior in any context is the environment in which we are regularly immersed in. We all have heard the phrase, right? Hang out with 4 turkeys, you'll become the 5th. Hang out with 4 eagles, you'll become the 5th one. And oftentimes what I find is my clients, they don't have an overly supportive immediate community around them, particularly in the African-American community. What you're likely to get when you're on a wellness journey is, girl, you eat like a bird, or you look good, you don't need to lose no weight, or she thinks she all that, or any number of things, right? Because when you're making a change, you have to be prepared for the fact that some people around you will not want the version of you that's most optimal. They'll want the version of you that makes them most comfortable. So being engaged with a group of people that are also finding comfort in your success allows you to shift. For change behavior, you either want to increase friction or reduce it. I make it harder for me to eat donuts because I don't keep them in the house, right? I still eat them, but if I want them, I've got to go out of my house, get in my car. I go and get my 2 donuts. I start eating them as soon as I get in the car. When I get home, if I want a third one, guess what? I got to go back out again. I'm not restricting myself, but I'm increasing the friction between me and the undesired or the lesser desired habit. Same thing in reverse, right? If I want to do something, I want to reduce that friction. And if I'm in a group of like-minded people asking questions who are talking about how they had a great workout today, and I'm not fighting with my spouse or my immediate family who said, you go to the gym all the time. All you do is go to that gym. See, that's an increase in friction. So as a coach, what I'm challenged to do with every client is find where can we reduce the friction between where you are and where you want to be, and where can we increase the friction between where you are and where you do not want to be. And that environmental piece is a huge asset to helping people shift their thought process about what their identity is. When you're becoming a soldier, I'd imagine, I am not military trained, but I'd imagine that you start to refer to yourself as a soldier. You start to feel that identity when you're immersed in it, versus I'm a person who's doing boot camp. No, you're a soldier, right? If you're there, that's what you are. That's your identity. And soldiers do certain things, right? Same thing from my perspective. I want people to realize I'm a person who prioritizes their health. I'm a healthy person, and I'm immersed with other healthy people. and healthy people do certain things and they do not do other things. That's another great question, by the way. So long story short, yes, the Facebook community is a part of what I do. It doesn't have to be a part of what every online coach does. And some people don't utilize it. But it's been beneficial for me. For people who are out there on Internet Island, right? They may be the only person in their family and extended family that has any concern for their health. And that can be very isolating. And you can feel lonely in that endeavor. You're fighting against all the forces around you. It's another great question, by the way.
I want to mention that you mentioned about in the African American community how the change, because so that means, if I'm understanding correctly, you are dealing with the cultural issues of your clients when they come around, because at least me growing up, my staple fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, loads of collard greens with fat back and all that stuff in it. And now at 58, my body doesn't tolerate that very well. Although I love all that stuff, but I know I can't. So when I'm making healthier alternatives, my family is not supportive at all.
Absolutely.
They're like, and when I said I wanted to get into shape, they were like, "You're already, girl, right now, as we sit, I weigh 229. I'm 5'9.5", so it doesn't look as if when you say that number.
Right.
But what I started realizing was that it wasn't about a number on a scale. It was about how I felt and how I looked. And as I began to work out, I saw my curves coming back. I saw my body changing when I started lifting weight. And I realized it wasn't about the number on the scale. And I'm mentioning all that because in our community, as I have begun to trim down and tone up, people are not real thrilled that I don't, as I call it, look like mama in them. I'm using air quotes for those of y'all that can't see, and you're only going to hear the audio portion. So people are concerned about me. I'm being told, "Are you sick, baby? Do you need a man?" And all those kind of things that they say, because I'm beginning to lean towards a healthier lifestyle, because I don't want a stroke. I don't want diabetes. I don't want all the health related issues that poor eating and lack of exercise bring. So when you are coaching, is that part of the service as well?
Absolutely.
The cultural, I guess this part of the mindset piece.
Absolutely. So, and again, this is the difference. And I don't mean to say this to disparage anybody, but this is the difference between hiring somebody who works out and looks good versus hiring a wellness professional. There's something called cultural humility. And it's a managing practice of being a coach, of being a professional coach. And cultural humility basically says that you realize that your client is the greatest source of reality for the culture that they have been brought up in. And thereby you trust what they say about that culture, and you adjust your coaching to make space for that cultural identity. So I know a couple of things because I've worked with, of course, obviously I've worked with Black and brown women, right? But I've also worked with Caucasian women. I've also worked with Latino women and Asian women. And I have to be adept and have studied and understand, or at least be very curious about the culture, because when you only try to deal with the organism, the body of the person that you're working with, you're doomed to fail. I could never say something to you like, you need to back, you really can't have fried chicken again ever, right? Or we need to get you more involved with some roasted Brussels sprouts. I'm sorry, those collard greens, that's just not going to work. That's not an acceptable vegetable for you. No. That's ludicrous. Not only is it ludicrous, it's disrespectful to your culture, and it's disrespectful to what connects you to your family. There's so much emotion tied up in the way we eat. We eat socially. Yeah. Sure, food is fuel. I get that. I see trainers talking about that, nutritionists talking about that. But food is also a slice of sweet potato pie with your ailing grandmother who may not be there next Thanksgiving, as she tells you what it was like to deal with Jim Crow. Right. Food is also, a slice of cake at your 5-year-old daughter's birthday party. And you guys, maybe you baked it together. because you're teaching her how to negotiate the kitchen. Food is also the first thing that two families do when a member from this family and this family join together in holy matrimony. What do we do as families? We get together and eat across the board. So food in and of itself is not problematic. Food becomes problematic and or bad. I don't believe in good or bad. Problem, we use it as of soothing something that we're avoiding. And a part of what I do is get down to the psychology of the reason why you turn to this mechanism, this tool, and the tool could be drugs. The tool could be, quite frankly, sex. The tool could be working out. It's tricky there, right? Yeah. You know, you could use working out as a tool for avoidance, and then then working out's not that great. So it's never the thing. It's the utilization of the thing, the intent that you have based on utilizing a thing and the reason that you're utilizing it. So yes, I have to respect that cultural identity, and we need to negotiate around it. I need to build the program around your life instead of giving you a pre-made program and stuff your life into it. This is what happens all too often across cultures, across genders, right? Across all types of things. You know, it could be respecting the culture of your military background versus me, a civilian who's never been involved in that, and understanding that you have a predisposition to getting up early and running. And I may say cardio's not good for where you are hormonally right now. And you may say, I run every day. It's what I do. And I say, well, don't do it. I've already lost you as a coach, right? So what I'm going to say is, okay, here's the compromise. You get up and run. I'm going to take one of the workouts per week away, just so that I know that your body's getting adequate rest. We can bring down that cortisol response so you get great sleep. Does that sound reasonable to you? And we'll monitor the food as always. Okay, as long as I can get my runs in, go for it. That's important. That's called client-centered coaching. And again, it's a difference between hiring somebody who looks good with their shirt off because they were a D1 athlete and they know how to work out, and hiring a wellness professional who actually, you don't go to therapy with your prayer partner because they're a good listener. They may be a great listener. They are not a trained, educated, and licensed therapist who can help you through triggers and things like PTSD. You know, you go to someone who's learned and dedicated their life to doing that for a wider range of people. And this is one of the errors that we make, particularly women make, in hiring a coach. You know, they want to hire somebody who looks like they want to look, or goes hard at the boot camp, or was on the cover of this or that, instead of a professional coach who is able to take in what you're dealing with, provide you with a client-centered solution that fits into the context of your life, so you don't feel like you're always bending your life over backwards to stay on the plan. It's much, much easier to build something around you that is the 3 S's that I look at. 1 S is safe, that it's safe, it's sane, and it's sustainable. If I get those 3 things, safe, sane, and sustainable, if I get those 3, you're probably going to be a success story at the end of the process. So I hope I explained that in a way that made sense.
Yes, it did. And I get what you're saying, because that was one of the coaches I had that I'm not working with. The first thing they did was I rise early, and my walking is how I clear. I take in the morning, I get up early, I get in my driveway and I start walking. I pray, I clear my head, I plan my day, and I meditate while I'm walking. And the first thing they said was stop walking. Those steps are useless. I'm like going, okay, you're not the coach for me, because if I was to stop walking, I must stop breathing, because that is a stress reducer for me. And I even told them that, and they told me they didn't care. And so I knew that person wasn't listening to what I needed from me.
It's a coach-centered coach, not a client-centered coach.
I was like, this is not going to work for me. And of course, they considered me a non-hacker, and that was okay. I just knew that anybody that would take walking away from me, when I explained to them that I was diagnosed with PTSD and walking was the only thing that kept me sane and on this planet, that I considered it my true lifeline. And they would say, get rid of it. They weren't listening to me.
Just don't
Um,
care.
they didn't care.
Just
So
don't care.
that was not the right coach
You
for
know,
me during that period. And then I just got rid of them and just kept walking on my own.
good good coaches sort of follow along the lines of that Hippocratic oath that doctors say, right? First, do no harm. That's
Mhm.
my first order of business. How can I make sure that I don't exacerbate what this situation is, right? I
Mhm.
may know what's scientifically optimal, and I probably do. I may understand nutritional intervention. I may understand behavior modification, right? Behavior science. Um, but I'm not the expert because the only expert is the person that I'm working with. I will never know that person better than they know themselves. So they become the CEO of our organization, and I become a very well paid consultant, right? But my job is to drive their business to where they want it to go and make suggestions that they have the final say in. And if I'm compelling enough with the argument that I'm presenting, and supportive enough of them maintaining the structure
Mhm.
and success of their current business, the likelihood that we can partner together is much greater, right? But if I come in firing people, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to end up getting fired as a consultant eventually, which sounds like that's exactly what you did.
And it took me a minute. I would say that back then, at the time when this happened a few years ago, I didn't have the strength mentally, emotionally, or physically that I have now, that I blindly followed.
Right,
I didn't give up my walk, and I just kind of didn't tell him I kept doing it. But
right.
I found that I was basically countering everything I was paying someone
Yeah, yeah.
to help me with. And what I know now is that I had the right to advocate for myself and say, no, you are not a good fit for me.
Right.
So I would, if you could just speak to that for a minute, about the importance of, also I have a herniated disc, L4, L5,
Hmm.
S1, and this person disregarded all of that.
Right.
And so I ended up with another injury on top of that. And so
Absolutely.
I think it's important that people hear that they have the right to say, no, this hurts, this doesn't feel good, this is not working with me. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you don't follow what your trainer says, but if it doesn't feel like a good fit, it's probably not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not, um, and this works across the board. So I'll speak to this holistically because that's how I approach working with the clients that I work with. Again, moms usually, but definitely primarily women. Um, Self advocacy is something that historically women, and even more specifically, women of color, that BIPOC community, right? That Black, Indigenous,
Mhm.
people of color community have not had a right to. If you start from, and I don't want to get too deep, but if you start from transatlantic slave trade, women were not able to advocate. They weren't able to advocate for their offspring, for their children. They were not able to advocate for their own breast milk, right? A lot of
Mhm.
times they were providing sustenance for the owner's children.
Mhm.
You move up to a situation, J. Marion Sims, right? The father of modern gynecology, would repeatedly execute live surgical procedures on the genitalia of these enslaved African women, saying that they can't feel pain, right?
Mhm.
You move up to situations like Henrietta Lacks and
Mhm.
her cells being harvested for cancer research against her will. You move up to stories that you hear from Serena Williams and how she nearly lost her life during her pregnancy because the doctors did not feel like she was
Mhm.
adequately sort of rating her own pain index, right?
Right.
You move through all of that, and women in general, again, women of indigenous descent,
Mhm.
more specifically, have not been skilled because they haven't been taught to be skilled at advocating for themselves. So your primary function is when you are dealing with a wellness professional like myself, or a doctor, a nurse, a dentist, um, you make sure that they have a clear understanding of exactly what you mean and exactly how you feel. And if they cannot come to that understanding, you move on. That's so important for people in general. Again, women are much more specifically, and I advocate for that advocacy. Right, I am a big proponent of respecting the autonomy of the woman and her right to choose what her body is and how she wants it to be. Because all too often we will project our desires for a woman's physiology onto her. You see that through the what I call the diet culture, right? Of having this one centralized ideology of what the body should look like when it's healthy, which is not entirely accurate, by the way. But you also see that in people who advocate for healthy at every size, right? And how they might demonize a woman who chooses that she wants to lose weight. Right. And I don't think that this is an or situation. I think it's an and. I believe that I can deal with clients and not say, you need to lose weight to be healthy. No, you need to develop some healthy habits to be healthy. As a result of those habits, you may lose body fat, you may not. But what I know for sure is if you're moving more, if you're eating better, if you're sleeping better, if those blood sugar levels are dropping, if those cortisol levels are dropping, if that blood pressure rate is dropping, no matter how you look visually to me, I know you've improved your health. And I don't care about the size or shape of your body necessarily. They're all shaped and size different. But on the other end, I'm not going to demonize a person who says, I'm coming to you for the purposes of wanting to make this body smaller. Can you help me do that? I don't think that's a no. I don't think it's you respect their wishes and don't tell them that they need to shrink their body, or you do tell them that they need to shrink their body. I think it's and I think that way of thinking about it is allowing the woman her own advocacy and respecting the autonomy and agency that she comes to you with. And I think that's the job of a coach, particularly if you're a male coach. I think you must understand that and you must respect that, lest you be attaching yourself to sort of patriarchal standards that are just as ignorant as they are antiquated. I know that was a long answer, but you got me fired up. I had my fist was balled up on the screen when you had, couldn't see him, but have to bust through the camera.
With all about wellness right now, Coach Ren, what advice would you have given your younger self, knowing that you were going to land where you are right now today?
Probably a few things. Now, I started exercising at 15 with the football players at my high school. I was the band geek, but I was a popular kid, and all my friends were football players. So I started early. I would give myself that same advice because now at 47, I see the benefits of having trained consistently for 32 years straight. Yeah. Right? Is there no, I've found some gray down here, but I haven't even gotten my first gray in my head at 47 yet. Okay. I'm just in a younger body that's had a better opportunity to regenerate. I've never been a drinker. I've never, ever smoked, so those things are really good. I think the best advice that I would have given was I would have given myself the advice that the things that you're going to go through you're going to want to lead yourself to despair because you're going to have a lot of challenges, particularly with losing family members. I lost my younger sister in February of 2020. I didn't even talk about that in sort of the introduction, but those things are the exact tools that are going to empower you to differentiate yourself in what's going to look like a very flooded market of trainers and online trainers and nutrition coaches and online nutrition coaches. So I would have given myself the advice of, having a sense of resolve and understanding that it's leading to something. Because as when you're going through things, you don't have that perspective. Sure, I can talk about it today with a sense of perspective maybe even giving across, some sense of wisdom about it. But as I was enduring it, it was, it was unbearable. And the other thing that I would do is I would probably go to school for, I probably like have a minor in kinesiology, sort of study of biological science or something like that. Because I had to learn all of that stuff as a young adult into adulthood. And that's one thing that I sort of wish I had a degree in, but I'm a lifelong learner. So always sort of process to improve understanding things. Plus, you can't speak that language to clients anyway. They don't know what you're saying. Plain talk is best anyway.
Yeah, some people might know. Well, I
Some
was just
people might.
just out of curiosity, do you feel like any of the things that you did in your financial path have helped you with what you're doing in wellness right now?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I was training people for sales.
Okay.
So this is one of the reasons why I came into this business as an entrepreneur. I never worked at a big box gym, a Gold's Gym, or an Equinox or something like that. I never felt the need upon getting certified for wellness in any aspect, whether it was fitness or nutrition or boxing or have a corrective exercise specialist certificate, all those certifications. I knew that I was never going to work in somebody's gym and have to pay them 40 or 50% of my earning for personal training. I was absolutely solid and absolutely secure in sales and in marketing and being my own boss in entrepreneurship. And that's the part that's really frightening for a lot of coaches in this area because they don't have a sales background. And now one of the things that I'm able to do is I'm able to teach other coaches as well. So I've coached coaches for fitness, and I've also coached coaches for business. How to write a marketing advertisement. How to go through a sales process on the phone with a potential client or on Zoom with a potential client. How to handle the objections, how to price your programs. So I came into this business with that, and it was absolutely a stark advantage over the populace of coaches, because I was thinking critically before. I knew in 2014 it made sense to be an online coach. I'm looking around, I see Uber dominating the transportation market, but owning no vehicles whatsoever. I see Airbnb dominating the hospitality market and not owning a brick, not having a brick to their name. And I said, well, why can't I, as a trainer, run a business where I don't own a gym, a barbell, a dumbbell, a treadmill anyway? People have that stuff either in their homes or they go to gyms that have it. I don't need to have the gym. So, I was online training 6 or 7 years before most coaches ever decided to try it, to make the attempt. And that was another advantage. So yes, I think that financial piece was really an advantage for me.
If you would say, with all of the things that you've done so far, training other coaches, helping them become entrepreneurs, teaching, getting them, I guess, on their certification, training all these women, how is all of that helping you live your best life now?
It gives purpose. And I think that I think it's hard for us to live our best life when we operate outside of our purpose. I think that who we think we are versus how we're actually living, I think the distance between those 2 points is stress, right? And I think when you close that gap, you also minimize the stress. So for me, having such a targeted reason to be in this business, and then taking that idea out of my mind and conceptualizing it, and then being able to build a profitable business that does pay for my existence, that serves my need for purpose in a way that that it helps me to live a better life. They've regularly polled people to find out what's their greatest fear, right? What people are most fearful of. And for years and years and years, that thing has been public speaking across the board, right? The last time that I saw research like that, it said the thought of living an insignificant life. had jumped to number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then fear of public speaking, and then death, right?
Okay.
So, and I also saw a list from a palliative care nurse who wrote an article about 7 regrets of the dying.
Mm-hmm.
This is a person who deals with palliative care. She's dealing with hospice people all the time, and she would ask people these questions. What are you most afraid of? What are you most regretful of? And across the board, number one was I didn't live the type of life. I regret not living the life that I wanted to on my terms. I made decisions based on what I thought other people were thinking about me. So that merging of my purpose and doing what I think moves the needle for other people, correcting the course of the one existence that they have, depending on your beliefs. I think that makes the most impact in my life. And had I not been doing this, I may not have found that particular intersection for me
Mm-hmm.
that gives me a positive reason to get out of bed every morning and utilize what was poured into me by all those people that I care about who are no longer here. Because by every right, I could be managing myself with drugs or any other form of abuse. Like,
Absolutely.
people who understand the details of my story would give me every right to do that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always felt like because of my purpose, it would be disrespectful to those people who poured into me, who are no longer here, to collapse in their absence. So that's my long-winded answer to the question.
Coach, how was someone that was interested in working with you, be it a client for physical fitness and wellness, or for an entrepreneur that wants to say, "Hey, I want to be a coach like you, and I want that kind of training." How did they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the couple of ways, and they're really easy on Instagram, which is where I feel probably 60% of my business. You
Okay.
just go to Fitness Jones Training. It's
Okay.
at Fitness Jones Training.
Okay.
Facebook, same thing, Fitness Jones Training. And if you must go to my website, there is one. It's
Okay.
fitnessjonestraining.com. There's a little bit of information there, but I do not regularly source clientele from that website
Okay.
because I like to talk to folks.
Okay.
So I'm happy to talk to anybody. And if you want to email me, it's my abbreviated first name, Ren Jones at fitnessjonestraining.com. So any of those Fitness Jones training handles will get you to me. And
Okay, and
I'll be,
we'll put all that in the description so people can find you. Coach
thank you so
Ren,
much.
thank you for being a part of us. And please stand by while I thank a veteran. If you or anyone in the audience listening would like to thank a veteran, I have a very easy way for you to do it. It won't cost you a dime. All you have to do is go to www.nevcc.org/projects and sign up for the Basket Brigade. There are 12 writing prompts, one for every month of the year. You pick one of those prompts and you write a word, a sentence, a paragraph, and tell a veteran thank you. It's never too late to tell someone thank you. And who deserves that more than our veterans? So go to www.nevcc.org/projects and put a note of thanks for a veteran. At the end of the year, Lisa Deshawn, the executive director of the New England Veteran Chamber of Commerce, and her staff will compile all of those thank yous and place them into a beautifully illustrated book, which will then be placed into a basket filled with goodies. And on January 1st, 2022, some very lucky veterans will receive your thank you in a book and inside that basket. So take the time to thank a veteran. Coach Ren, I just want to ask you, do you have any final thoughts for the audience?
Absolutely. You know, in terms of fitness and wellness, oftentimes what we will do is we will throw the kitchen sink at things. Um, and when you're wanting to make change, you have to realize that long-term sustainable change has a tendency to favor evolution, not revolution. There's no need to revolutionize all your habits overnight at once. It's more than likely going to be a short road to falling off that wagon. So I always like to tell clients and potential clients to respect the continuum, the spectrum. You don't have to go from 0 to 100. adding things into your nutritional profile, much better strategy than always trying to subtract a load of things, subtracting a load of bad foods, drinking one extra glass of water per day, or having one extra piece of fruit per day, or one extra vegetable per day, getting outside and walking for 10 minutes instead of not walking at all, not getting out of your seat. All of those things that you may factor as small interventions or not doing enough, those are the things that you're going to be able to sustain for a longer period of time. And we know, just like all good investors know, that the only deposit that does not compound interest is a zero deposit. So if you place any deposit into that bank of your wellness and give it time, it's going to grow exponentially. And you're going to find that your health gets closer to where your intention for it is and further away from where you don't want it to be. And that's my final thought for the day.
Well, thank you, Coach Ren. And those who just used to watch, we like to remind everyone to tap in. So if you're ready to tap into Coach Wen, if you are a frustrated mom or entrepreneur coach that's ready to take your business to the next level and you need some guidance, then I want you to remember number T, letter T. Transform your mind and know that you are not alone. Coach Ren is here to support you. I want you to remember the A stands for announce. Announce to the world that you're ready to make that change. You're ready to get your fitness on track, reduce your stress, and get your business, that's coaching business for wellness, to the next level. And contact Coach Ren so you can get some accountability. Then I want you to prepare for that by getting the necessary equipment that's needed. Join a gym, get some running shoes or workout gear. Do what you need to do so that you're ready when you connect with him online to do what you do so you can get your wellness in check. And then I want you to imagine how amazing your life will be when you are working with Coach Ren and you begin to see the results you've only dreamed about. And then I want you to nurture those thoughts, because if you tap in, you will be sure to get the life you want to live, because I want you to live a life fully alive, fully expressed, and fully fulfilled, unapologetically unstoppable. Remember, everyone, the choices you make today will be the reality you live tomorrow. So choose wisely. Be blessed. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.